afraid? Was it recently? No. What about when your dad got bit by a dog, man? That scare you a little bit? He had a lot of blood, didn't he? Right, Wayne? He had a lot of blood. That was scary sometimes. Do you know that one time I was at my girlfriend's house, and I was at her house, and her friends were outside with her dad with a chainsaw. The chainsaw chain broke and went through his leg. And I was so afraid. And I went running and said, we have to call 911. But they were Christian Scientists. So they put me in the back room, and they prayed. I think it's okay. But I was really afraid. The scripture you're going to hear today, you're going to see about some men that are kind of afraid of things that are going to happen. But if I said to you something like this, would you mind just getting up for a minute? I'll just get up. Just get up. You'd think about it, right? What if I said this to you? Get up! Would you get up? Wait a minute! It's your pastor speaking. Get up. Get up. Stand up, please. Exactly, it's like being a parent. I've been there, right? So today you'll hear Jesus tell the people to stand up, and they're afraid. So when you listen to scripture, listen for the words afraid, and listen for the words get up, okay? Let's all pray together, all right? You all pray after me? Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this time together.
Thank you for this time together.
For we hear your word, and we learn, about listening, being afraid, and getting up. In your name we pray. Amen. Now, when I was a kid, and I was at camp, it was pretty scary. And I'm going to give you a scripture reading and talk to you about my time at camp, kids, okay? Matthew 17, 1 through 9. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. And Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it's good for us to be here. If you wish, I'll put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. And while he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them. And a voice from the cloud said, This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. And the disciples heard this. They fell face down to the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said. Do not be afraid. When they looked up, they saw no one except for Jesus. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, Don't tell anyone what you've seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
So now the kids get to hear about a time at camp. When I was at camp, we played a game called Sardines. Who's ever heard of that game? No one at 9 had heard it either. This is amazing. Okay, you gotta learn about sardines. Sardines is a game that has a special twist to it. It's basically a tag game. But the person who's a sardine goes and hides. It's like hide and seek. But when you find that person, you never tell anyone else that you found them, and you lay down next to them. So after a while, it looks like the kids lining up like a can of sardines. Okay? But when we played sardines, it was always at night, and always in the hills of Maine or New Hampshire, where there were no street lights, people. It was pitch black. Pitch black. Who's heard that expression before? Yes, right? And so we were very afraid, because sometimes you'd be laying under rocks or by tree trunks or whatever it is to conceal yourself. It was a really scary thing. And remembering the shivers that I had from this experience and how terrified I was and how I prayed not to be chosen as a sardine, I was wondering how the disciples felt about this encounter we had with Jesus. And so in the scenes leading up to the transfiguration, the disciples worship the Jesus who walks on water as the Son of God. And if they can worship a man who walks on water, And worshiping a Jesus who glows is kind of a piece of cake. And it's interesting that the whole scene rings with allusions to the Old Testament. This scene recalls Elijah's encounter with God in the holy mountain, and it brings to mind the cloud of God's glory at the tent where Moses met God. When the disciples saw Jesus change and glow on the mountain, they must have been totally terrified. Here they were up in a mountain, and all of a sudden, Jesus metamorphosizes like a butterfly. In fact, the Greek word for metamorphosizes is, when transfigured, metamorpho, meaning to change into another form, to transfigure. Now first, the disciples thought this was kind of cool, especially Peter. Because Peter says, Lord, it's good to be here. But if you examine the word good here in Greek, Peter shows his true nature. He's a bit clumsy and awkward. And when he uses the word good here, it's the Greek word that's used for a casual stroll in the park, not for Jesus being transfigured. And then Peter casually again says, I'll build you a few tabernacles for Jesus, Elijah, and Moses. But he doesn't mean tabernacles in the real sense, but a booth. How many of you ever been to a Jewish festival of booths or festival of tabernacles? I have. And it's really, really interesting. They build small booths out of branches and straw, and then they live in them for the days of the feast. They live in those little booths, those little huts. So Peter is ready to build these little shelters. They're not little tabernacles, these little shelters for them. And he thinks it's kind of neat that Jesus is metamorpho, and building the shelters is a way to worship Jesus and the other men. But then the big guns come out. God speaks. This is my son, the beloved, in whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him. Be quiet. Listen. Be available. Don't go and do just yet. Just listen. Be and adore. Be still. Know that God is God. When God speaks, we are to be riveted, awed, flabbergasted, lost in wonder, love, and praise. The listen to him comes directly from Deuteronomy 18:15, where Moses on the mountain hears God in a cloud and makes a prophecy of someone coming like a prophet like me, and demanded the people to listen to this prophet. Well, after God speaks, Peter, instead of being riveted, awed, flabbergasted, lost in wonder, praise, Peter is scared to death. And he can no longer be casual. He can no longer just use the word good, like a casual walk in the park. The heavens opened up and spoke. If I were playing sardines in the woods somewhere, and I heard a voice calling from the heavens, you're darn right I'd be falling on my face and completely terrified too. But it's interesting here, the book of the Gospels places the disciples' fear in different places. In the book of Mark, Peter speaks after seeing Elijah and Moses, and the Gospel says that Peter spoke without really knowing what to say, because they were terrified due to the appearance of the prophets. In the book of Luke, the men become terrified when they were trapped in the cloud that brought God. But here, in the book of Matthew, Jesus says, get up, do not be afraid. And when Jesus tells them to get up, he's using the same words he's also used in raising the dead. He tells them to get up and leave their fear behind after God has spoken. This makes me wonder, what is their fear really of on that mountain? What do you think that Jesus is telling his disciples not to be afraid of? Call it out. What do you think it could be?
The unknown.
The unknown. It's a good one. Oh, good that. What else? Be brave.
Leaving the status quo.
Leaving their status quo. Yes.
Supernatural.
Supernatural. Mm-hmm. What else?
Be afraid of God.
Afraid of God. Right. Of the prophets. The voices, the noise, the images that they're seeing. All those are the right things. But there's something interesting that happens here. Jesus, when he tells them to not be afraid, he does something different. He touches them. In the other Gospels, there's no touching. The author of Matthew has Jesus healing the men with his touch, healing their terror. Touch is so incredibly important, my friends. And after they were healed by touch and raised their eyes, Jesus is completely alone with them. Healing our terror I'd like you to think back at a time in your life when Jesus healed your fear. Remember the times when you hid in a place that felt as black as pitch. We all have black as pitch fear type moments in our lives. Remember one of those now. When my mother-in-law was dying of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, she knew she was dying. And she knew she was dying, but she refused to talk to us about it. It was very hard because I had young children. And I couldn't share with them what I wanted to share, like Grandma's okay, or Grandma, it's okay to talk about this, Grandma. She refused to talk about it, completely refused. And looking back, I realized it was her fear that did that, her fear of dying. When I was with her in her final days, I was bathing her one day with a soft cloth. And she became agitated and started thrashing around, and she was not vocal at this point. She was in a coma. And I said, it's okay, Mom. It's okay, Mom. It's just Kimmy. I'm just bathing you. I'm making sure you're clean and fresh. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And she calmed down almost right away. Because the sensation of a cloth on her skin from someone she didn't know who it was, she couldn't see me, she didn't understand, but her basic instincts were saying, don't touch me. But once she heard, she calmed down, her fear was gone, she let go and she relaxed, and she died about 10 hours after that, which I find really interesting. Fear of the unknown is one of the biggest obstacles that we encounter in our lives. Of all the fears, I think that fear of the unknown is our biggest, and we will encounter it at one time. This last week, I visited TA the day before he died, and we had a really interesting conversation about his impending death. I was holding his hand, and I was stroking it, and he was being soothed by that. And I said, Tia, how are you feeling about what's coming? And he said, it's really okay. I'm not afraid to die at all. He said, I really miss my wife, and I want to see her so much. And I miss my dog Heidi, who was at his daughter's home, that he wanted to hold before he died. He said, I really miss them. But you know what? I really wish God could make it just a little bit easier for me. And I said, yeah, TA, that's understandable. But you know what? The next day he died. And God answered his prayer. When Jesus tells the disciples to get up, does he mean get up and I will heal you from your fear? Probably. But there's something else we can read in this text about the command to get up. It's the same Greek word that's used when Jesus commands Lazarus to get up, and he's dead. The divine voice commands us to listen to Jesus. But listening, you see, my friends, is more than just hearing. He says, get up. Get up. I have touched you and healed you from your fear. Get up. I understand how fear can paralyze you. Get up and take action in the things that are yet to come. Get up and be the disciples I need you to be and the world needs you to be. He commands them to accept the healing and move on. To get up and do. And then, the end of the text, Jesus commands the men to tell no one what they have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. He means that even if you told people, no one would really understand until they see it in the light of the cross and the resurrection. There's a connection. It's a preamble of what's to come. They need to be ready for what's to come. And this transfiguration of their Lord and their friend is the first part of their journey. They have to leave their fear behind in order to embrace the call that's beckoning them. They have to get up. What fear does this text call us to leave behind so we can get up and serve the risen Lord? Let's listen this month, this whole time of Lent. Let's listen to our hearts to hear what Jesus is saying to us personally when he says, get up, don't be afraid. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
As the choir comes forward, are they going to stay seated? They're going to stay seated, okay. We're going to be singing today, Be Thou My Vision.